Hello. I'd like to start off this video with a rhetorical question. What makes you watch Silksong content? What about this silly bug game specifically draws you to seek out more of it past finishing the game yourself? Is it the mystery of the lore? The need to optimize every moment of your casual playthrough? Or perhaps you just enjoy seeing someone destroy the game 200 times faster than you ever could? For me personally, it's the last one. I took up speedrunning the game immediately after my casual playthrough, accruing me over 500 hours of game time to this day. However, I still see things that make even me go, how did he do that? I can only imagine what it's like for a hypothetical someone who has just finished their playthrough to tune into a speedrunning stream and see something like this. Seeing a trick performed seemingly with ease is baffling, but what the casual viewer doesn't see is the 1,000 times the runner practiced this trick in the first place to get it to such a point. How hard is this trick really? To the untrained eye, it's impossible to tell. So I figured I'd use my proverbial soapbox today to pull back the curtain, allow a little peek into the world of just how hard and or easy the 90% speedrun is. However, just explaining the tricks and the route wouldn't be any fun, and has already been covered before. And luckily for you, I like over-explaining things. So today, come with me as I rank almost every difficult room in the 90% cloakless speedrun. Speaking of, just how many rooms are there in this route? A staggering 174. But Cactus, I hear you say, the video is only so long, how can you possibly cover this many rooms in such a short time? Great question.
Now stop asking.
That may sound like a lot, until you realize that of these 174, 132 of them are finished in 15 seconds or less. Not to say that none of these 132 aren't difficult, but a majority of them are just passage from one room to another. Suffice it to say that going over most of these would be a snooze fest, so I've cordoned off all of these whole W rooms into this bottom tier here, leaving us with a grand total of 41 rooms to rank, which is still a decent number. Also, this time around we'll be ranking on a number scale of 1 to 5 based on how difficult each room is to execute. Anyways, let's dig in. Now you'd think we wouldn't reach any of these difficult rooms until at least a little bit later in the run, which is a good guess, but very incorrect. The difference between a well-executed early game and a poorly executed one is minutes, mostly due to our good friend in early game speed tech, pogo cancels. Normally, if you jump in pogo with the Hunter Crest and hit the ground, you enter this short stagger animation. Not terrible on its own, but when you're trying to chain hundreds of them together to get to the swift step, it adds up fast. For some reason, if you release all horizontal movement keys before hitting the ground, this stagger doesn't occur, meaning all of early game becomes an intricate dance of jumping, pogoing, releasing the button, then immediately repressing it to not lose any horizontal movement. On top of this, you have to space your jumps differently, as our first room in the run shows us. When you're under this platform, the timing of the releases changes, as you're a shorter distance away from the ground. Hopping up onto the ledge? Pogo an enemy? The same thing applies. These things may not seem difficult in a vacuum, but trust me when I say executing all of these pogo cancels in a row makes platforming much, much harder. However scary pogo cancels seem though, once you learn the rhythm of them, they're easy to replicate. We'll give room 1 a 2 out of 5. Moss Mother is the next room on our list. It is the first boss, but there's a big difference in being able to execute a room and being able to execute it well. In this case, this up slash before getting hit is actually very, very hard to get down. You don't have much wiggle room in these earlier button presses to be able to swing up on this frame. That being said, it is still Moss Mother, but that one nail swing is enough to earn a 1 out of 5. The next room on the list is the Beastfly Pogo room, specifically the second time you enter it. I've often heard people who are learning the run for the first time struggle a lot with this trick, but once you get a feel for it, you realize there's a lot more wiggle room than first anticipated. As long as you bait the fly to attack in this area on the screen, you'll get the height you need to reach the ledge. Not terribly difficult, but enough so to give it a 2 out of 5. The room with Silk Spear seems innocuous, but this pogo here is a lot tighter than it looks. If you're too low, you run into the spikes, and if you're too high, you clip the ledge, losing you a couple seconds either way. There's also this Achnid pogo, but it's impossible to mess up as long as you stand still until it attacks. 1 out of 5. Bellbeast is a surprisingly intricate fight. Their attacks are simple, however it's possible to completely skip this long phase of bells falling from the ceiling with precise enough damage. If you're able to lower their HP to just before the phase change and then throw it in a lot of damage, you're able to kill them during the scream, saving around 15 seconds. The attack rotation for this is incredibly tight, one hit too few or too many, and you won't be able to kill them during their scream. The rigid fight structure of Bellbeast earns this room a 3 out of 5. This next room is one of my favorites. It's pretty simple, but if you mess up the movement, you're losing 5 seconds, which is a decent bit for an early game segment. However, when you get the movement right, it feels really cool. 1 out of 5. Finally, we progress far enough to do away with pogo cancels, but these are replaced with another movement tech, the wave dash. If you pogo and then immediately dash, you can carry the momentum of the pogo somewhat, allowing for an even greater than normal burst of speed. It's a lot more lenient than the pogo cancel in terms of execution, but you have to be more conservative with the tech, as doing it at the wrong time will result in a time loss. This room was the first taste of the real movement of the run, but it also showcases just how complicated the tech can be. We'll give it a 2 out of 5. It's around this time in the run you use dash to collect a bunch of rosaries. We retread a lot of ground here, but this room at the top of the Marrow is the most annoying one to deal with. Normally, this door takes several needle strikes to open, but if you saved enough silk from the previous rooms, you can silk spear it to destroy it in one. Yet another step up from this is jumping high enough to hit both the solid wall and the door at the same time, skipping the animation of reeling the needle back in. It's a lot more precise than it looks. Next, you have these awkwardly spaced platforms and red pogo things, which if you mess up the timing of your pogos or the spacing of your jump, you're going to hit the spikes and eat some time loss. Plus, you have to do it twice, on the way there and on the way back. A deceptively complicated room that you could easily lose 30 to 40 minutes to learn properly. We'll give it a 2 out of 5. After buying the simple key from Bone Bottom, the run heads into Wormways, which you need to pass through this room to get to. While traversing it may not be that difficult at the end of the day, traversing it quickly is an issue, specifically because of this one Achnid. If you're slightly too slow, you have to wait for him to clear the cage, as he'll aggro onto you and likely make you fall down. If you're even more slow, he'll be in the way as you try to hop across to the second cage. Ideally, you'd hit this sweet spot in the middle. However, if you do these inputs fast enough on the way up, you can actually clear him before he makes it to the first bad spot. 2 out of 5. Now we come to the Wormways. I'm going to rank the whole thing all in one go, as each room here pretty much follows the same pattern. These worms that rain from the ceiling are pseudo-RNG, meaning they start falling at the same point as you pass through these invisible triggers, but their X position varies slightly each time, meaning you have to keep a watchful eye on the ceiling and react if the worms are either too close or far away enough that you can pogo through them. There's this mini skip you can do here by pogoing off the worms and dashing into the wall, but it doesn't do much to add to the overall difficulty of the room. You'll spend hours learning the spawn points, pattern differences, backup movements, and hating every single time you get grabbed by one of these stupid. We'll give Wormways a 4 out of 5. Next room is the Sister Splinter skip room, in which you lure this... What are these things called? Fascia? Huh. In which you lure this fascia to this spot here so you can pogo to the upper part of the room, skipping a lot of platforming and Sister Splinter. An easy task, you just have to spam taunt. However, you can lure it a lot faster if you needle the wall, for some reason. The difference between luring it properly and only taunting is several seconds, not to mention you have to be careful not to fall down immediately after. Messing up the trick is scary, but other than that, this room gets a 2 out of 5. The next room is arguably one of the most hideous and messy places in existence. Your room. But what you have to do in this room is actually very easy. Did you know that only 5% of people who watch my videos are subscribed? Isn't that terrible? Doesn't that suck? Oh, isn't that awful? All you have to do is scroll down below the video and click the subscribe button. It's a tall ask for anyone, but I believe in you. You can do it. Go on. Do it. The actual next room is less scary, but more time-consuming. You have to make your way all the way around and back up into this upper entrance, but having to hit all these walls 4 times each to break them is incredibly slow. If you're really lucky, this fascia here will be in the perfect spot for you to get a sneaky pogo to skip a wall break. However, runners discovered that you can also force it to be in the correct position by doing this cheeky upslash damage tank. You need to tank the hit, as if you fall down onto the spikes, you'll end up losing the time you would have saved regardless. And this needle swing is a lot tighter than it looks. Doing the room normally is a 1 out of 5, but adding the speed tech and doing the room properly makes it a 3 out of 5. Next up is the room before Widow. Not terribly difficult, but again, doing the room properly takes a bit of work. There's an interesting mechanic with these bell walls, where if you space a dash attack or upswing properly, it will only take 2 hits to clear them instead of 3. Not only this, but you have to make it to the next segment of the room within a certain time, or you'll miss the cycle of these large bellflies. Is what I would say, had someone not discovered that you can abuse the pogo iframes and down dash through them, skipping the need to damage tank. Still, these few things are enough to earn the room a 2 out of 5. And now we come to Widow, our first difficult boss of the run. Watching a speedrunner do this fight makes it look not that difficult, but this fight requires that you master the combat in order to do it quickly. Of her 4 attacks, the 2 you do not want to see are the grabbing scuttle and the debris, as she is unstaggerable during these animations. When she stands still, you want to abuse 2 things: the dash attack into attack cancel, and the dreaded pogo dash turnaround. This input is crazy hard to do once, let alone consistently. On top of this, you need to be able to react to the angles of her thrown bells, which can mess with you a lot, especially if she decides to summon a whole wall of them on top of you. It's not uncommon for even top-level runners to use their Silk on a heal every now and then, as sometimes the RNG is simply too much to mitigate. Phase 2 goes down faster than Phase 1, however, there's no flinching, so you're pretty much praying for no scuttles. All that combined gives Widow a 4 out of 5. After Widow, the run heads toward the Mist, which we need to pass through this rat room to get to. It's another one of those rooms that doing it carefully is no issue, but this room is littered with traps and holes in the ground, meaning you always have to be careful, even though the optimal movement is to be spamming wave dash. However, having just left the Needle and cutscene, we are out of Silk. The only enemies to get Silk from are these 2 rats, and even then you need perfect movement to even save time overall. A bunch of small things adding up gives this room a 2 out of 5. Before the Mist is the Timothy Skip room. It's called Timothy Skip because this guy says, instead, run out, then back in the same room, and pogo off Timothy's head. Then stall with a Silk Spear. Timothy will gain enough height that after another pogo, you'll be high enough to grab onto the wall in this cage, allowing you to climb to the top of the room. This pogo is extremely precise, and we're unable to do the easier cloak version of the trick, since we obviously don't have the Drifter's Cloak. Missing the second pogo will easily lose you 20 seconds or more, meaning this room gets a 3 out of 5. And now we enter the Mist. I'm not going to go over every single intricacy of the Mist here, nor will I cover every single room. If you'd like a really good breakdown of the whole thing, check out this video by Oxbox. Suffice it to say that the Mist is an RNG nightmare that can only be mitigated by absolute knowledge of every single mechanic and pixel-perfect execution, meaning the Mist as a whole earns our first 5 out of 5. After the Mist is Phantom, who all things considered is one of the easier fights in the run. The only tech here is recognizing when she's going for a parry and not triggering it, as it loses time, as well as trying to corral her to a wall so you can get a Silk Spear cancel. The hardest thing you can do is hit her as she's coming down from one of these giant light pillars. Yes, these have a hurt box attached, but it's A, very dangerous, and B, does not end up saving an incredible amount of time. Phantom gets a 2 out of 5. The next room is the steam vent section before Cogwork Dancers, and is one of my least favorites. In order to get a good cycle, you have to buffer a wave dash out of the loading zone, then frame perfect release the dash so you can do a normal jump so you can dash across the first gap, then continue wave dashing immaculately so you can barely squeeze past the middle steam vent. The easier version is to simply wait here, as missing the trick means you'll be on 1 HP for the Cogwork Dancers, so most runners opt for the safer strat. The easy strat gets a 2 out of 5, but the perfect Steam cycle is a 4, if not a 4.5. The Cogwork Dancers are a very simple fight. You start out by scream skipping the entry animation, after which the first 2 phases are nearly 100% consistent. The first phase will always end while the right dancer is on the bottom corner, and the second phase has some very small variations, but all of them are easily reactable and punishable. The third phase is more of the same, except you go for the left dancer as he moves second, meaning you get more time to punish him. All in all, as long as you go into this fight with 5 HP, you'll never have anything to worry about. Cogwork Dancers gets a 1 out of 5. Lower Cogwork Core is a menace to learn. The dropping section on the left takes a lot of muscle memory to get down, and the climb up on the right side is also very execution dependent. I spent hours in this room alone when I was first learning to run, which didn't bother me that much because the song here is one of the best in the game. The room gets a 3 out of 5 though. The next room is the first arena of the run, but thankfully there's a fairly consistent script for each wave, so it all comes down to player execution. It's also not that difficult to recover from, so this will get a 2 out of 5 as we breeze past. This next whole segment of the run is very movement intensive, but nothing is too difficult until we get to our next boss, Trobio. Trobio, wherefore art thou, Trobio? Oh, in the floor where it can't hit you for the 5th attack in a row? Amazing! Trobio's very RNG heavy fight, with him disappearing into the floor on average 4 times an attempt. On top of this, the balls he throws and the explosions he causes are completely random, meaning you have to always be on your toes or you're tanking 2 damage. Past this, it's all about combat execution, especially keeping track of how many times you've hit him, as if you can squeeze in an extra Silk Spear before he hits the ground, you get the full effect of the stagger without waking him up. His tornado is a little scary, but you can punish it pretty easily with either a well-aimed pogo or a Silk Spear from afar. All these things combined nets Trobio a 4 out of 5. The next room on our list is this long hallway before Clawline. Civ may be making it look easy, but this cycle-based room is very precise. You can't go too fast or too slow without losing a decent chunk of time, but luckily it's more execution than RNG based. It's still a fairly difficult room to get down, so we'll give it a 3 out of 5. The arena in the Clawline room is slightly harder than our first one, but the only really difficult part is making sure you hit these 2 flying guys at the same time with this Silk Spear. Everything else dies pretty easily. 2 out of 5. The room right outside where you collect the Vault Keeper's Melody is one of the more execution-heavy rooms in the run. Every input here has a purpose. Nothing is wasted. Firstly, squeezing under this Vault Keeper is incredibly tight, and getting behind the Lamp Bearer before he flies away is also no easy feat. Notice especially how they're abusing the harpoon to get these fast ledge jump animations. I love doing this room in runs, and it gets a 2 out of 5. Now for the dreaded Upper Cog. I'm just going to let this movement play out, and you can agree or disagree with my rating. I think the room will speak for itself. Incredible. 4 out of 5. This is the last long movement section before 2 of the hardest parts of the run, and the final boss. Luckily, it's all scripted movement, but this room in High Halls is especially bad if you mess it up. Not having enough silk for harpoon at the final part, or accidentally falling in the water, means you will be non-stop harassed by these ministers, which, needless to say, will lose you a lot of time. 2 out of 5. The room immediately after this one is no joke either. Lots of falling at max speed requires you to know the layout by heart. There's also this god pixel skip, but as long as you do the inputs the same every time, it's impossible to miss. Plus, it's really cool, so you get swag points. 2 out of 5. Ah, here it is. The moment I'm sure you were all waiting for. My and many people's least favorite and also the true final boss of the run, High Halls Gauntlet. The worst thing you can do is underestimate any single enemy in this room. With a total of 11 waves of enemies, you need to constantly set up scripts, play around RNG, mitigate silk loss, decide whether you should spear or heal, keep tabs on every enemy and what attack they're doing, watch out for any bells being thrown your way. I just want to finish the— Not to mention the final wave of 2 clappers who will almost certainly box you in and give you terrible RNG on their attacks. I am not joking around when I say you will spend nearly double digits of hours learning and practicing this gauntlet. A surefire 5 out of 5. We're nearing the end now. Lace 2 is a very, very fun fight to perform. Constantly having to weave in and out of her attack range, punishing her as she leaps over you, tracking her stagger count so as to not hit her off the ledge so you can get a good punish, this fight tests every aspect of your combat abilities. Not to mention, it's incredibly satisfying beating the crap out of Lace. I could spend hours practicing this fight, and I'm glad there's at least some light at the end of the tunnel after the travesty that is High Hall's Gauntlet. The learning curve is pretty high, but once you get it down, it's incredibly fun. Lace 2 gets a 4 out of 5. And finally, we have Grandmother Silk's room. Climb up isn't particularly demanding. You just have to watch your height and make sure you can clear the ledge with the harpoon. Grandmother Silk, however, is another beast entirely. The way the fight is designed, you'd think she's just a moving soul totem, and this is somewhat true. However, the proper damage rotation is less obvious than you might think. While it may be tempting to spam harpoon for extra hits, the real test of this fight is spamming the jump dash attack reset and fitting in silk spears wherever possible. Most of the time, her attacks are telegraphed enough you won't have an issue dodging them, but you have to pay close enough attention for when they layer on top of each other. This is doubly true for when she goes against the right-hand wall, as getting 2 silk spear cancels is a ton of damage, and will push her through her phases much faster than if she were in the middle of the room. Stay light on your toes and keep pushing damage, and she'll eventually fall, but the other factors of the fight earn her a 3 out of 5. And that's all the difficult rooms in the game. I don't have a good ending segue. I'd go on a long-winded finale teasing about what the hardest room in the run could possibly be, but we all know it's High Hall's Gauntlet. It's not even close. Doing such a demanding combat scenario with very little upgrades is a recipe for disaster, but seeing it executed well by so many runners in the community warms my heart. Thanks for watching.